Aloha! Welcome to the Live Ukulele podcast. My name is Brad Bordessa. Thank you so much for joining me today. Going to be talking story with Aaron Nakamura from Ukulele Underground. One of sort of my peers in the web ukulele business. Ukulele Underground came online about the same time as Live Ukulele. So always cool to catch up with those guys, and especially Aaron. He's kind of been the PR guy over the years that I've been most in touch with. I'm looking forward to hearing some of the stories of the beginnings of Ukulele Underground and some of his experiences with playing guitar with Aldrine and all these different things. Should be good fun. If you want to improve your facility on the ukulele's fretboard, I invite you to check out my course, Left Hand Technique for Ukulele. It is 50 HD video lessons that go from beginner to advanced and revolve around everything that your left hand, your fretting hand, might want to do on the fretboard. We talk a lot about lead playing and how to play melodies on the ukulele. There's also a few lessons on chords and a song that we strum kind of in a jazz style with some jazz voicings. Beautiful tune. But really, the goal of these lessons is to help people play with correct technique so that they can play easier. Lots of times folks just kind of hodgepodge their lessons together and play just any old way. And what I like to think I'm bringing to the table in these lessons is a more collective whole of how you can approach fretting on the ukulele with good technique to play easier, to play lighter, and to be able to play faster, but also to understand how the fretboard works a little bit. I talk about how you can figure out how to move from string to string when you're playing leads, how to play scales up and down the fretboard, transferring strings wherever you want and playing the scales wherever you want without needing to memorize a fretboard chart or anything, just to understand how the notes cascade into one another. Those are the kinds of things that are very near and dear to my heart because I think that they help people experience music in a more wholesome kind of a way. And I think that it will really help people improve their playing and become more confident in what they do. If you're interested, head over to liveukulele.com/store and you can find it right at the top, Left Hand Technique for Ukulele. It's the newest offering from Live Ukulele headquarters. With that, let's get right into the conversation that I had with Aaron over Zoom, of course, because he's on Kauai. I'm on Big Island. One of these days, I'll start getting these guys into my studio and recording them in person. But today is not that day. Aaron Nakamura. Well, why don't you start by giving us a little bit of background of how you got involved with Ukulele Underground? I don't know if we know the story of how it came to be in the very first place.
Yeah. So I'm Aaron Nakamura. I'm a co-founder of Ukulele Underground. And Ukulele Underground is like a website that, our mission from the very beginning was to help grow the next generation of ukulele players. And so, I don't know. I mean, right after college, I actually went to college in Colorado. So grew up in Hawaii, went to college in Colorado, got a biochemistry degree, and came home and didn't really know what I was gonna do with that. So my senior year in college, I was in talks with Ryan, who is one of the other co-founders of Ukulele Underground, and he graduated a couple years beforehand with a degree in like web design. He was creating websites, and he was convinced that the future of the internet was in video. And so, so while I was in college, while I was getting my biochemistry degree, I was like dabbling with playing around with video. Like I would come home for the summers, and then I would shoot video with my friends. Like we would do like, just random, like I remember filming like a kung fu movie with my friends, just for fun, and then getting back to Colorado and then having all this footage, and I didn't know how to edit at that point. So I just downloaded a video editor and I just started playing around. So in my spare time, I was playing around with video editing. And because one of my best friends growing up was Ryan's younger brother, and then I knew Ryan through Boy Scouts and stuff like that. But when he was, I guess he got out of college and he was like, the future of internet is in video. I know that you do some video stuff just because I'd been making random videos with my friends. This was long before YouTube, so there was no reason for me to create videos. I just wanted to, And so he was like, if you do come back to Hawaii after college, I'm probably going to be working, trying to start my own businesses or working for just in website design. And so I'd like to collaborate with you if possible. And so we started coming up with all kinds of ideas even before I got back home. I was planning to at least come back home to Hawaii. I knew that Ryan was going to be on Oahu. So I moved to Oahu. I figured if anything, I could just get a job and then figure out what I could actually use my degree for from there. And so got back to Oahu. I started, I went to Kapiolani Community College to get a degree in, like a certificate so I could work in hospital labs, because I figured that's something that I could actually use my degree for. And then I got a side job, and then I started doing some video editing on the side and working with Ryan. And at that point, we just threw out like a bunch of different ideas. I had an idea for like a one day in the life type of video series. So Ryan started working for a company called I Am Hawaii. And that was like, it was like a website that was promoting Hawaii. So we had like a show, like they were able to contract me out for some video series. One of them was One Day in the Life. I would just follow around some person that I thought was interesting and just document one day in their life. And I did a few episodes of that. And then a couple of the other ideas was some video ukulele lessons online. And so Ukulele Underground kind of spun out of that. So yeah.
Wow. So you guys had sort of this master plan all set and going before Aldrin even came in the picture. How did you guys link up with him and decide that he was going to be the face and the kind of instructor?
Yeah. So in high school, Ryan was in a band with Aldrin.
Oh.
So we all played music in high school. I was in a band with my cousins. And shortly after, Ryan started a band while we were in high school, and it was some of his friends. And then at some point, they recruited Aldrin because they heard that he was a really good ukulele player. We all went to Kapa'a High School, and Aldrin was at Kauai High. And so I think they met him at like a contest, an ukulele contest, and then decided to recruit him. And so I knew of Aldrin back then, but I didn't, I never hung out with him. I never really heard him play. And so it wasn't until after college when I came back, it just so happened that Aldrin had moved to Oahu at the same time to pursue like a teaching degree. And so Ryan said Aldrin is on Oahu. And so why don't you guys come up with some kind of show that we could put on I Am Hawaii? And so we had a few ideas. Ryan and I have been like working on all kinds of ideas. At the same time, before any of this, we started a website called was it Island Music Network? And so the idea for Island Music Network was basically like a high sessions, like what high sessions is today. So like we're planning on doing that long before YouTube, where Ryan was hobbling together like a video player, like a way to stream video on the internet. And so we're planning to put together like it was called EPKs at the time, like electronic press
Right.
kits for bands. So we were in talks with some bands, and we were putting together some EPKs for them, and that was like our original idea. We knew that we wanted to do something that had to do with music, but yeah, and then we had 100 other ideas, and like one of them stuck. Yeah.
Wow. So you guys are all back on Kauai now?
Yep.
Okay. So how did Ukulele Underground? I mean, these things take time, right? When we came online, because Ukulele Underground and Live Ukulele sort of came out around the same time ish. I think you guys were a little bit ahead. But it took me like 10 years to realize, like, oh hey, I could be like, this could be a business. This could pay the bills. Were you guys looking at it from that perspective right out of the gate? So you had that drive, or did that like become a possibility as it became popular?
Well, I think we all kind of like once the idea sort of solidified, and we saw, because we started it in 2007, and it was mostly because I Am Hawaii pivoted. They said that they weren't really going to do any more videos, and we at that time we had amassed like a little community of 100 people on I Am Hawaii's little forum thing. I don't know. I think it was just like a message board at the time. And so we were just saying like, oh, like 100 people is a lot of people. Back then we were thinking like, if we had like 100 people in this room, it would be packed. Like we wouldn't be able to move. Like we can't let 100 people down. And so Ryan was saying like, somehow he was able to see like the back end numbers for I Am Hawaii, and he was saying that like most of the traffic for I Am Hawaii was for our video lessons for ukulele. And so he was saying like, maybe like it's possible, it's a long shot, but we could turn this into something. And so we had dreams that maybe it would fund our actual living and lifestyle. Like, none of us live very extravagantly. And so it wasn't like out of the realm of possibility to create something that could sustain us living in Hawaii. But I think at that point, we just dropped everything and we just went all in. We all moved back in with our parents, and that meant moving back to Hawaii. So, back to Kauai. So, yeah, that was that's what happened in the early days. Like I think we started in 2007. We went on our first tour of the mainland in 2008, and that's really what kind of gave us the kick in the butt to try and do this, because we went to California. We saw all the people that were really excited about it, and just that it was like a ground up type of movement, and we're like, if we don't do it, then somebody else is gonna do it, and we're gonna be kicking ourselves. It just seemed like ukulele was at that tipping point, and they needed somebody to really push it forward. So just kept making videos, came home, and then really decided from there that we were going to go all in on it. And that meant me like moving it back into my parents' house. My room was basically occupied at the time. Like my mom had put stuff in there, like her sewing stuff and everything. So I was living in my parents' living room. And like I had a bed in the living room, roll out of bed, I'd edit videos all day long. And then, yeah. It was funny. Aldrin moved back in with his parents. A lot of the early videos, if you look on his channel or our old channel, is from his original bedroom from when he was in high school. And then Ryan, same thing. I think he moved into his, I think his dad had like an apartment next to his business, and he moved into there. So yeah. Basically, yeah.
Great.
That's what we did. Yep.
Super grassroots. Shout out to the parents.
Oh yeah. If we didn't have super nice parents, Ukulele Underground wouldn't have lasted very long.
It makes a huge difference to not have that overhead as much.
Yeah.
That's great. You guys had that opportunity. So you talk about going on tour. You all the videos I've seen of you, you're playing guitar. Is that your main instrument, or do you dabble in ukulele much?
Yeah, like I learned ukulele first. So maybe when I was in 5th grade, I learned ukulele. And then by the time I made it to middle school, I was interested in playing guitar mostly just for accompaniment. And so my cousins played ukulele, they taught me. And then I was like, we should start a band. But like we all only knew how to play ukulele. So so it's like we can't have a band of just 3 ukuleles. So one of my cousins learned bass and and I learned guitar. My other cousin just stayed with the ukulele, and then we just started gigging. I was maybe like 14 years old, and then started gigging, like somehow convinced some of the restaurants on Kauai to let us play there. And then we just went from there. That's what I did for my job in high school. And then pretty much just guitar has been my main instrument. Although in college I really wanted to reconnect with the ukulele just because I was so far from home. Just being in Colorado, it made me miss home and made me want to reconnect with the culture. And that's when um, I know a lot of people, like if you know our show, I play a fluke ukulele. And that's part of the reason why is because I was in Colorado. I didn't want to bring an expensive ukulele or buy like a solid wood ukulele that would probably crack from the humidity or if I didn't take care of it. And so that was like that ukulele has lasted me this entire time. So yeah,
Awesome.
it's like 20 years basically. And recently actually I dropped it and the top of it actually cracked. And so I sent it to the Magic Flute Company, and Dale has been fantastic. He really took care of me. And so I think I get it today. So I'm going to
cool.
see. Yeah, he replaced the top. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the flukes, they were like one of the first mainstream ukulele production ukuleles.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could get it like delivered to my dorm room. So so yeah, I don't think there weren't very many affordable ukuleles that were doing like national shipping at the time. And so yeah, I could order exactly what I wanted, get it shipped to my dorm room, not have to worry about it cracking or like, humidity changes and everything. And yeah, it's lasted me this entire time. So that's why I'm pretty yeah, I'm a champion of the fluke.
Nice. Well, I'd like to go down that path, but before we talk about how far the ukulele has come and what you've noticed over the years, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about accompanying ukulele players on guitar, because that's kind of being that rhythm player and holding it all together is its own sort of skill, and you need a whole different group of musical skills to kind of fill that role. What have you found to be most important as you play guitar with Aldrine or any other number of ukulele players?
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, I'm strictly a rhythm player. Like I can't play a lick for to save my life. So so I'm definitely just a rhythm player from the very beginning. Like I was always into like singing and performing. And so like learning ukulele, learning guitar was always a way to accompany myself, even if it was just myself or, my other bandmates. And so I really just double down on the rhythm. So like that's basically all I can do is the rhythm. But yeah, I don't know. I guess over time, a lot of it is just experience, right? So the more that you play with others, the more you are able to pick up on the vibe of other players. Just right off the bat, you can kind of tell what type of player they are and what tempos that they usually gravitate to. And a lot of it is just internalizing that tempo and then sticking with it. So yeah, I know that you were working on like a strumming course with who was uh who is it, the ukulele site, I think, Andrew, guys.
Oh yeah.
Did
That
you say you were
just
working on a?
was. Yeah, that just came out a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, okay,
And
nice.
I did. I talked a little bit about strumming and keeping on time as you strum instead of doing the robot thing where you try and power out the strum. You just
Oh yeah,
more of a flow kind
yeah,
of approach.
yeah. I think you mentioned something about like playing to a grid or something like
Hmm.
that. Yeah, and so that's sort of the way that I visualize it, and then it's sort of a internally for me. It's more of a visual slash like a kinesthetic kind of kind of feeling. So I react to the player or whoever is really setting the tempo, the drum and bass if drum and bass is there, and then the player if I'm just playing with Aldrine, he sort of sets the tempo. So I in my head I imagine that I know that certain notes that he plays has to line up on whatever beat one of the grid. And then so if he rushes that beat, my grid compresses, you know, in order to like my future grid compresses in order to make sure that he lands on beat 2 correctly and beat 3. And so yeah, it's always visually the way that I imagine it is in order to sync up with whoever it is that you're playing with, your grid needs to expand or compress based off of the last few notes that they played. And so yeah, I think that's sort of what how I accompany people. And then a lot of really like if you can get to the point where you know the song well enough where your right hand is just moving. For me, I'm just playing chords, and my hand is just automatically going to the next chord by feel. Then that if you can free that up, then you can get into the rhythm a little bit more. You can lock into the rhythm a lot better. So I've been playing with Aldrine for over 10 years already. So
Wow.
I know the times when he's going to speed up. You know, usually during certain songs he speeds up at very specific times, and then he takes it a little bit longer during other times, and so I can anticipate those things already. But if on any given day, if we're playing with somebody else and that dynamic changes, then I have to anticipate that. And so yeah, if you can get to that point where your fretting hand doesn't have to think very much, then you can focus on all of those other factors, and you can be a lot better at accompanying people. So yeah.
Well, 10 years is a long time to play with somebody and to kind of internalize their feel. You've
Yeah.
certainly noticed changes in Aldrine's playing.
Yeah.
What are those, if you could dish a little bit
Well,
on our main man here?
yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I remember the first time that I ever saw Aldrine play. Um, Everybody was talking about him like, oh man, he's so fast. He's an incredible player. He's so fast. And I remember meeting him, basically hanging out with him for the first time. We were in high school still. Like it was with some of my friends who knew him. And then I remember seeing him, and then coming away from that first meeting thinking like yeah, he's fast, but he's really not clean. and to some extent he's still not very clean, you know. He'll admit he's not one of those super clean players. Like, you know, when you think of really clean players, you think of like Herb Otha Jr. or not necessarily Taimane, but like Britney is like another really, you know, super like make the note, you know.
Right.
But Aldrine is one of those where like sometimes he'll intentionally play dirty for a specific purpose, right? But yeah, he has over time he's gotten better at like letting the notes breathe. especially for certain songs where it really counts. And so yeah, as far as for the time that I've been playing with him, because he's been playing for a long time, um, but for the time that I've been playing with him since the beginning, he has really like learned to let certain notes really breathe when they count. And then he can do all of his fancy like crowd pleasing stuff however he really wants to do that. And it sort of gives him that musical signature too. So that's totally fine. That's his style.
Right.
But yeah, he's matured over time. Um, but yeah. So
It's always interesting to watch how different people kind of grow as musicians and where we end up, what way we end up leaning. Because a lot of times we start one way and like, I'm going to play fast like Jake. And then you end up playing less and less and less, or slower or more patient or whatever it is. Or maybe you go the other way. Mm-hmm. And that's just part of the progression and part of what we do. It's part of the journey and the art.
Yep.
So it's always interesting to hear how different people kind of experience that.
Yeah.
But returning to the fluke thing, that's very like old school ukulele. You've seen a lot of the kind of revival of the instrument. Have you noticed any kind of trends, especially in the past few years, kind of trends with how people are experiencing the instrument, or changes in the community and the fads and things like that? Do you have any thoughts along those lines? Because you see it from like the forum and all of your members. You probably have a larger cross section of at least the online community than a lot of us.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I guess the ukulele community can be broken up into there are a lot of people who are just into it because they came to Hawaii and they want that connection with Hawaii. And that makes total sense, especially to me, since I went off to college and then I totally missed being in Hawaii, having that connection with Hawaii. And so ukulele was a way to experience that. And so there's that group of people. But then there's also, I feel like now there's a group, I guess even when we started, there was a group of people who just wanted to use it to play whatever music that they liked. And so, especially in the time where YouTube is so big, and then the video length is compressing because we have like TikTok and Instagram. And so there's a lot of experimentation going on, and I think that's really exciting. When you have people doing a lot of newer sounding, more contemporary, mainstream sounding songs, but they created it on ukulele. And so that's something that we've always talked about at Ukulele Underground. Like we never really stuck to just the Hawaiian stuff because we wanted people to realize that you can play basically whatever you want. And so we've always done like, rock and country and all kinds of funk and different things. But it's always interesting to see when people are taking it to whatever it is that they're interested in. And so I'm seeing a lot of that now, where it is mainstream music or it is experimental, like ukulele, but it almost doesn't have any ties to traditional ukulele just because it's coming out of like these kids who are just playing around with it, and they have, what music is to them in their head, and that all they're doing is expressing it through ukulele. And so that's really exciting to me. And that's really what we wanted from the beginning, because when we started, when people heard ukulele or ukulele, they had an idea of what that was already, like a preconception of what that was. It was, Israel Kamaka, Viva Ole's Somewhere Over the Rainbow. But now I don't think, at least the younger generation doesn't necessarily think of it that way. They just think of it as a way to express themselves. So So yeah, that's really cool to see.
Are there any players that you've noticed that are really exciting that kind of stand out to you?
um,
I know there's so many, but
yeah, yeah. There just like a lot of kids on Instagram now. I don't really keep up too much with that, but recently on the podcast we mentioned Boy with Uke. There was like a yeah. So there's this kid who just totally blew up on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, has like millions of views, and that's it. That's sort of what I'm talking about. Is that he creates like contemporary sort of hip hop, indie hip hop type of music, um, strictly on ukulele and other instruments, and it almost has zero ties to traditional ukulele, and that's pretty exciting. Just the fact that it's evolved to that point where it doesn't have to be connected at all, and it's standing on like people who like that type of music. It's standing on its own merit, like
right.
regardless of if it's played on ukulele or not. And the fact that he has "Boy with Uke" in his name, that's pretty amazing. So yeah.
No, it's great we've finally gotten to a point where it can stand by itself. That's so cool. Because that's the dream growing up. Is like,
Yeah.
maybe someday.
Maybe someday. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And I had always thought that I was I've been a fan of electric ukulele. So anytime that an electric ukulele has come out, like the Risa or Kamoa was one of the early ones where they had the electric, like a proper solid body or semi hollow body electric ukulele. I think Flight is another one that just came out recently. I've always had sort of kept tabs on those things because I thought that was the avenue that it was going to come out through. I figured my prediction was that there was going to be a mainstream band, sort of like whatever, like a Foo Fighters like was during the 90s, that where the lead singer, instead of having an electric guitar, would have an electric ukulele, and then maybe like it would come through rock or like so, something like that. But it doesn't look like that. It looks today. I think we're looking at more Instagrammers, people who are doing pretty cool things on normal ukuleles and then just contouring it to whatever sound that they want. Not necessarily having to be anything anything that people preconceive of. They just do it. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So before we sign off here, could you share briefly about the Kanilea merger and what the future of Ukulele Underground holds and what you guys are looking forward to?
Yeah. So we had been in talks with Kanilea even before the pandemic. So this was sort of a process. Things got a little hairy during the pandemic, and then we had to resume negotiations after that. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. Like I said, Ryan, the other co-founder of Ukulele Underground, he was already sort of thinking of doing. He started some other projects, and he was getting more focused on some of his other projects. And we already knew that he would probably not be with the company for too much longer, and so we needed somebody to step in and fill that business role and the website role, because Ukulele Underground is basically three legs. It's like I take care of a lot of the video editing stuff, Aldrine takes care of the content, and Ryan traditionally has been the business and website side of Ukulele Underground. And so we really needed somebody to step in. And so yeah, Yokepa and Kaimana of Kanilea Ukulele are really starting to fill that role for us. And they have like a bunch of different ideas. I don't know if I can share too much yet, but we're in the works. Like we want to do a full redesign of the website because our website needs it. And then I think they really want us to double down on some of the courses and lessons. And so yeah, we are going to be working on those pretty hardcore for the next 6 months or so. And then we'll see what happens from there. We still have the same mission of helping to grow the next generation of ukulele players. And because, ukulele has evolved, we want to be able to do that and continue doing that. So, yeah.
Nice. Do you have any of your own personal music projects going on, or is Ukulele Underground the focus?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, I just love music. So, like, as far as personal music projects, just being for me, like, I'll do music just for myself and, like, a few of my friends. So, like, Kahai is our only employee, and so Kahai and I started like a beat making like club, just the two of us, or with one of our friends. So it's like the three of us just like taking samples of just random songs and like making beats and stuff like that. So that's not really for the public, but it's just for me. So as far as personal projects, that's like yeah. Nice. Just for my own musical edification.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to share the story of Ukulele Underground and some of your history and thoughts on where the instrument's going.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Brad. It's always cool to catch up with you.
Yeah, for sure.
And then definitely, I just got to talk story and hang out sometime.
Yeah, you mentioned that you might be coming over to tour Mauna Loa and the Koa Forest reforestation project.
Yeah. So I know that Kanilea has their reforestation project, and Aldrine has visited the ranch once, and I've never been. And so, like, I really, really want to make that happen, be able to go over there. And then we're thinking, because we're, in connection with Kanilea now, maybe we can do some retreats or something in that area, and it'd be nice to have you there, and it'd be like fantastic. No plans yet, but we'll definitely let you know when those things come to the planning stages.
Sounds awesome. Keep me posted.
Yeah.
Thanks again to Aaron for joining me for a little bit of a talk story about some really cool ukulele stuff. I haven't had a chance to talk in person with Aaron a whole lot, though we did a podcast on the Ukulele Underground podcast a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago. During COVID, we were all bored and we zoomed in and did a podcast. That was good fun, but nice to hear the stories kind of straight from the source and, see how the whole puzzle fits together. Because like I said, at the very beginning of the podcast, these are kind of my peers and have been sort of the compadres as we try and navigate this web ukulele business thing. Certainly Ukulele Underground is a little bit more further ahead than I am, just because they have the manpower and had the vision and went in with all of that. And I sort of was like a high schooler, like, hey, this would be fun and I'll figure it out as I go. And we're still figuring it out as we go, but it just gets better and better. And it's so amazing to see the support that the ukulele community pours out for all of the content that we create. So appreciative of that. And great to get to talk story about those things with Aaron. If you like what you hear, I encourage you to please subscribe to the Live Ukulele podcast on whatever your favorite podcasting platform is, whether it be Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere else you can find it. That's great. You won't miss an episode, and you will hear about them as soon as they come out. Every first and third Saturdays of the month, there is a new episode. Usually try and go every other. We have a Brad talking head piece, and then we have an interview with some interesting person in the ukulele scene. Now that I'm getting a little more interview options on the calendar, can kind of go back to that schedule. For quite a while it was just me talking. That's okay, but it's also interesting and exciting for me to get to talk to folks who are out there in the real world and doing interesting music things. I'll catch you in the next episode. Until then, be well, take care of one another out there, and keep on playing music. Aloha.